Please enjoy this uninterrupted conversation as part of our academic integrity series brought to you by Integrity for Education. Integrity for Education supports your institution by unlocking the full potential of digitalization through the right mix of software solutions, strategic consulting, and sustainable implementation of state of the art technologies. Learn more at integrityforeducation.de. That's integrity, the number 4, education.de. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, and we are back on another academic integrity podcast episode sponsored by Integrity for Education. Integrity for Education. And the CEO of Integrity for Education is here. Here's Thomas Fetch. He's my co-host. Tommy, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Elvin, for inviting me over to another series about academic integrity. And I'm looking forward to a discussion with Jared.
Yes. And so we're going to bring him right in because you know how we work. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Jared McNeely, and he's the Chief Academic Officer at the Sonoran Desert Institute, also known as SDI. Jared, how you doing today?
Doing great, Elvin. Tommy, thanks for having me on, and looking forward to talking about academic integrity. You know, it's one of those subjects that seems to change a little bit as the world changes. So, looking forward to the talk today.
Absolutely. So we are too. So before we get going, we want to know all about SDI. Tell us all about what you do, how you do it over there.
Yeah, so we're an online trade school. So it's really interesting to be in that space. My background came through the military, and then up through college and that type of thing, and got into the trade space because I went back to thinking that I wanted to work with my own hands, and have always had a passion for helping adult students or adults in general. Even in the military, training was a huge passion of mine. So, got into the trade school space and just absolutely love it. We do a couple of different areas. We do gunsmithing programs where we talk about the mechanics of firearms. So working on them, got to be safe, got to be functional, all of that kind of thing. And then we also work in the uncrewed space. So drones, and the commercial side of that. So, as you see that industry change, whether it's the delivery side of it or agriculture or whatever, we're looking at the people that are actually in that space, applying that tool to whatever problem they need to apply it to. So, we're helping get them trained up and get them out there working.
Gotcha. So tell us a little bit more about SDI. Where are you located? How many students? Do you have different campuses? When did you guys start? All that good stuff.
Yep. So we've been around since 2000. We've got one campus, but it's an online campus. But our main office is actually in the Tempe, Arizona area, so Phoenix, Arizona area. So all of our students are online. All of our staff and faculty work in a distance education concept. So, and we work with students all over the country. With the two different verticals that we're working in, somewhere around 3,000 students. You know how that ebbs and flows. We're in a little bit different model. We're not in that traditional fall, spring semester model. We start a new group every month. We graduate a group every month type of model. So the ebb and flow of that 3,000 is a little faster than what you normally see in a traditional education model. So, and probably the big thing that is one of the draws for me when I came to SDI about 5 years ago was the idea that trade schools are often thought to be hands-on schools, right? You've got to be there, you've got to do it. Well, with the change in the world that we've seen, the rise of Amazon, the rise of Zoom platforms, things like that, you now can take something that typically was an in-person, hands-on type learning experience and apply it to where you can put the lab in someone's living room and let them learn that trade right there in the comfort of their home. And so we're using all of those wonderful advancements in the world, whether it be, the use of online LMSs and video tools and that kind of thing, or the delivery systems like what Amazon has developed or any of the other delivery services out there. We're we're using that to help get our students educated by getting those materials into their hands so they can do the hands-on work they need to do right there where they're at.
That sounds fantastic. All right, Tommy, over to you.
Yeah, wow, that sounds interesting. I want to refer to one thing you said at the very beginning. Is that is very dramatic changes out there, and I was just wondering what you related that to. Is that related to your position as a chief academic officer, talking about like threats to the academic integrity, or is it something else?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think every good strategic-minded leader is looking at threats in various different ways, but academic integrity is one of those. I mean, we talked about tools just a minute ago of being able to deliver things to a student's door. Well, guess what? There's now tools in the AI space that make academic integrity harder to combat. The other thing is relaying that experience to a trade school student that maybe hasn't had the most exposure to it in the past, and relaying it in a way that makes sense to them. Well, then you actually get into the other IP like patents and those types of things, and it's all the same idea. We're trying to protect other people's ideas, but then also build upon them. How do we ethically build upon those ideas as we grow? So, um, those threats can come from anywhere. I mean, the one I think we've all talked about and seen over the last uh, year or so, and really been longer than that, but in the mainstream has been about a year, is the AI, the growth in AI.
Hmm.
But even then, you can go back and look at some of the other tools that our students have had available to them, whether it's the tools inside of Microsoft Word, or the tools like Grammarly, that kind of, those have been around for years. And they're in essence low level forms of AI. And so how do you make sure that it's still the student's original work? And so, that's a threat that we've got to continue to work through throughout. And we've chosen to do it kind of an interesting way. We have kind of a standard model that you would expect to see at any higher education institution. Most of our academic integrity is handled by our faculty in the classroom. We want it to be a teaching event. We want it to be something where if a student's not adhering to our policies, can we bring them up to speed? Can we make them understand why it is that we're doing this? What's important about it? How do we protect those ideas of other people? And can we do that just right there in the classroom? No other formal steps beyond that. And that can look a lot of different ways. That can be a simple phone call or notes from an instructor saying, "Hey, um, you know, I can go out and find this piece on the internet. You probably didn't write this, right?" And they, "Yeah, I didn't." "Okay, here's the deal. You can't do that, right? We need to give credit where credit's due. But then I also want you to learn from this. So there's going to be a small deduction, but I want you to redo this because I do want you to come up with your original thoughts around it." Um, which is something most of us have probably encountered throughout our educational journeys. I've done education a lot of different ways. I've been in trade school. I've got a master's degree in organizational leadership. I've seen it lots of different ways. So I've worked up through the education system, and we've all encountered that. The fun part is then when you take a student that may not understand academic integrity and get them a little bit of understanding, but then you also change the what would normally be a thought process on academic integrity from a curriculum or a faculty member's standpoint. And the way we do that is I would much rather my student not write a paper, because most of what my students need to be doing is demonstrating something. So what
Hmm.
we ask them to do is we ask them to take that lab and we ask them to do those demonstrations, and we ask them to do it on video. And
Hmm.
so they're submitting videos of their physical work they're doing and getting feedback from their faculty member. Well, the beauty of that is the AI tools aren't good enough yet to fake all of that, right? Uh,
Not yet.
they're
Not
getting
yet.
there. They're getting there, and we'll have to
Definitely
rethink
getting
our
there. Yeah.
strategy, get a threat there. Um, but the beauty is we're really using what they cherish doing, which is getting that hands-on work because that's what they're going to be doing out in their industries. And we're using that to prove that they know what they're doing. Um, and not necessarily asking them to do something they're not completely familiar with or totally comfortable with in writing a paper, citing sources, so on and so forth. We ask them to talk about their sources and explain, hey, I saw this and from this piece of literature, and now I'm doing it and I'm applying it. And oh, by the way, it worked great up until this point, and this is where I had to modify it to make that project work for me. So, very interesting way to combat academic integrity when you think about the trade school environment.
Yeah, sounds super exciting and interesting. I need to say, I think it's a little bit more of an effort, right, to run down that line. So it seems that, of course, if you really have this situation where you check those videos, or even like in an online video session, and watching someone doing something physical, it's a little bit more effort than you would need to invest using a tool, for example, blocking off different things. Correct?
It absolutely is, and that's another one of those threats that we've had to deal with and walk through over the last 3 or 4 years as we've made this transition. Is looking at how our faculty spend their time.
Mm,
We want them reviewing those videos, and so maybe there's something else that was normally in the process for the faculty a few years ago that's not anymore, and so. Because it's important for them to be reviewing those videos, reviewing that, and giving that feedback to the student, because that's where the interaction happens in our version of an online classroom. And so we've actually made adjustments along the way. We want them to be. We also use discussion boards as most online schools do. So we want them to be active in those discussion boards, but we've actually pared back a little bit of the number of responses they have to do. We want them to be very substantive responses, but we used to say, for instance, maybe they had to do 6 each day. Now we have them doing 3 because we know they're spending that time watching that video, so on and so forth. So we've made those adjustments to help combat the threat, but also to help make sure that we keep a good learning environment, both for the students and the faculty.
all right. Good to know. Yeah. And like talking about that, like from the other point of view, what would be like your biggest fear? Like seeing that people utilizing AI and incorporate that in the day-to-day work. But I think like if the outcome is excellent, no one would have a problem with it. But it
Right.
obviously, in a lot of cases, it's the other way around. So there is a fear connected to it, correct? So what would that fear look like?
Yeah, I think my biggest fear is uh, something akin to what I dealt with probably in about elementary school. Now, this will kind of give away my age, but I won't say it out loud. But most of us that went through elementary school in the 80s can remember people talking about whether we should use calculators in class or not.
Yeah.
That was a huge debate. And my mother was a math teacher, so it was a debate that was brought home to my kitchen table regularly. Um, Whether I understood what we were talking about at the time or not, it was still something that I was exposed to. Well, AI can be the same problem. If you think about it, a calculator is a tool, just like a drone, just like a firearm, just like anything else. They're all tools. AI is a tool. If we figure out how to use it responsibly and ethically, it can be a tool that produces great results, right? If we're not using it responsibly or ethically, then we're going to be in trouble. And so my biggest fear is that higher education in general gets stuck in that kind of mode of, well, we're just not going to use it because we're afraid that it's going to be something that's um bad for the process.
Yeah.
When I think what we should be doing is we should be looking at ways that we can utilize it and teach our students how to utilize it well, because it can be a wonderful tool to support things that maybe they aren't good at. Um, one of the projects we're working on right now is we're always evaluating courses and revitalizing courses or revamping courses, and one of the things we're looking at right now is how do we take A student who is typically great with their hands, maybe has a bit of an engineering or mechanics style brain where they want to diagnose things, they want to fix things, but then they've got to explain it to their customer, what they did, why it cost that kind of thing. And so, what we're hoping to do is use some of the AI tools to help a student say, okay, how do you put the right information into that prompt, whatever whatever system it is, whether it's a Chat GPT, whether it's a Claude, whether it's any one of these AI systems, a Gemini, a Copilot, whoever, right? How do you get a good prompt written that then gives you a response that you can then tailor to fit your application? And what we're trying to do is get them to write an email with it. Because what my most of my students would do would give you the very specific uh, kind of technical writing version of it, which is not great marketing and customer service
Yeah.
necessarily, right? And so that's not their forte. So let's use that tool to help get that little bit of language in there of this is good customer experience, this is good customer service, and that's a wonderful way to use that tool. Um, and so that's what my big fear around that is that we just stick our heads in the ground and don't do anything with it at all when because the world's just going to pass us by. Um,
Yeah.
and so hopefully we can give our students a good, responsible, ethical foundation and show them how they can use it to their
Yeah.
advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's true. I think also that if it's rightly applied to like learning environments, to courses or curricula, it can be vital for the success and the outcome. And I think also the learning experience. So you can definitely use. It doesn't matter which um, GPT or Claude or a large language model, like this kind of AI technology. You can apply it and just make it ask you questions or give you ideas for prompts, as you said, right? So you can definitely make LLM create output as you want and just trigger maybe the thought process. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's possible, and that's a good way. Beside your very humanized approach to academic integrity, is there any technology you also apply for scenarios or in different use cases, or is it really strictly that you have this 101 like student faculty connection, or how do you do that?
We do use some tools. We use Turnitin as a tool on
All right.
written work.
Yeah, sure.
Pretty developed item that's out there, that's pretty common in the industry for to be used. So we do
Absolutely.
use that. We The other interesting part of all of this is that because our practitioners are not typically well versed in academia or higher education, we actually have to teach them how to use that tool. They may get something back that has one sentence flagged in the whole 2 or 3 page paper, and they think it's a big problem. That's not that huge. That's not a big deal, right? It's when you've got whole paragraphs that are flagged, and so we actually have to teach them how to use that tool because they just don't come from that background. So it's been really interesting. But that's a tool we give. We also give them some other indicators. One of the things that I love about being a faculty member is I do get to know my students, and usually, assuming that a student hasn't started from day one writing with AI, I still don't have a great way to combat that one, but we'll continue to work on it. But usually, what you find is they'll write for themselves for the first few weeks or whatever, and then they'll get into a pinch and use it, and it's obvious that it's not theirs, right? And so we try to teach our faculty members how to recognize those situations and then go have that conversation. And it may be something where we simply are going out and doing a search on the internet, especially in the discussion board system where we don't use Turnitin. We're really relying on the faculty to talk through it. Hey, if this just doesn't seem like your student's writing, plug it into Google and search it, and see if it's there, that type of thing. And so, just some of those typical, you know, almost forgotten techniques of being a good faculty member. We use all of that stuff, but Turnitin is the one tool that we do use to back up any of the written
Sure.
assignments.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Yeah, absolutely. And I think very very good point. And just remember what you did as a faculty member before. Go out and talk to your students and just look in detail. But there is a very interesting point in using technology. Is good, but you also need to take your faculty also like on the same journey, right? You just need to maybe educate them in a way to really interpret what they get as a result and work with it and know how to utilize it. Talking about like AI detection as an indication tool, what do I do with the result, right? How can I really use and maintain and create outcome from it? All right.
Yeah, and we always start at the lowest level with the faculty trying to make the correction. But if we've got a habitual offender that's not understanding it, we've got the same tools that most higher ed institutions have. We've got an academic integrity committee that will review faculty submitted complaints, and that can go all the way up to, with a habitual offender, it could result in expulsion. I mean, that's in the policy. We don't see that very often. We really try to teach to getting the right behavior from our students so that they're successful later on. But that is an option, and it can get to that point. So the other interesting part, especially with trade school education style of things, a lot of our answers are yes, no answers. And so then it becomes an instructional design and a curriculum development piece of, this is not a good prompt for a, a, a a written response that needs to be cited. This is a better prompt for a question on a worksheet where you're going to get the same answer over and over again, or a question in a quiz where you're going to get the same answer over and over again. And so we look at opportunity to remove that jeopardy of academic integrity out of those situations, because there's not another way for the student to answer. And so even getting the teams to think about that process of, there are times to put academic integrity into the classroom and put the student, and I call it jeopardy because I'm an old criminal justice major in my bachelor's degree. So the thought of double jeopardy is out there, right? I think we've all heard that term. But putting that student in jeopardy of being in trouble if they don't do it correctly, there are times to do that and there's times not to. And so we look for those opportunities when it's the right thing to do. And we look for those opportunities when we're going to get the same answer. So let's ask this in a way that doesn't put them in that jeopardy of being in violation of academic integrity, because everybody's going to say the same thing. We're looking for that one answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that would have been one of my next questions on how important is like assessment strategy. I would say maybe strategy is the best word for it. But what is how is assessment strategy also tied to academic integrity? Maybe this is already the answer you gave. So
Yeah.
and there is a lot in it. Obviously, there is a lot in it, so that you can ask the different questions that will create the same outcome, or vice versa, right? So ask one question, but you want to really understand what's the thought process behind the answer, and get some kind of idea on why someone said this would be my way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and the other avenue with that assessment strategy is, we use tests differently than a lot of institutions do. Most of my tests are open book, but that's because our subject matters are so broad that I actually want to train my students to, number one, realize that things change very quickly. The uncrewed industry, the drone industry, is changing so fast that I want them to not necessarily rely on what they've memorized, because it could be wrong tomorrow. And so
Yeah.
we do a lot of open book testing to force them to go look the answer up, because we want that repeated experience for them over and over and over, because that's what they're going to be doing in their industry. On the firearms side of the industry, it's such a broad industry and there's so many different types and kinds and whatnot. There are some base concepts that we want them to know as rote knowledge, but then a lot of it is, where can you go find this information? Where can you get it? And that's where AI comes in again. It's a great tool to put in if you can write a decent prompt, to put in a prompt and say, okay, pull together all the stuff that you see about this. Uh, but then the other thing that we're trying to teach them, and it does go a little bit into academic integrity, is, can you evaluate that? Is that a good source? Um, is it something that's viable? It's something that is that you can use, that's applicable to what you're doing. And in both of our industries, the big question we always ask is it a source that makes you feel safe? Because the wrong information in our industries can lead to detrimental things. And so
Yeah.
we really try to hammer that home with our use of academic integrity as well. Of, are these good sources? Are these strong sources? If you're going to use a source, is it a good source for you?
Right. Yeah, that brings them a little bit in the obligation to really rethink for themselves if they are on the safe side, if they feel confident with the information. Is knowledge theft like a topic? Like, is the knowledge you just teach, like, it sounds a little bit like that, like arms, drones, sounds a little bit like military to me. So in that area, in that space, not specifically maybe to military, but in that space I think it's highly interesting knowledge for people outside your organization, maybe outside your state, or even outside the United States.
Yeah, it is. We see more of it when I talk to people in the industries. It's more along the patent infringement, or those concepts of other IP rather than the written word.
Mm-hmm.
But knowledge theft is absolutely an issue that's dealt with on both sides, both industries that we're in. The drone industry is growing so fast that uh, you almost can't turn around on a day when somebody's not coming out with something that looks really similar, and you wonder what's going to happen with that concept of knowledge theft, or IP going on in the background. So um, the other thing that we talk through with the students, though, because again, most of our students won't necessarily go out and write about something, and so they don't worry much about copyright, but they might go out and build the next better mousetrap. And so how do you protect that? Um, is that going to be a trade secret? Is that going to be something that you patent? Is that going to be something that, whatever that technique is going to be? So we start to talk about that, and that does really hammer home the piece on academic integrity. Why we're doing that, because if you come up with a great idea, you'd like it to be yours, and benefit from it,
Yeah.
and let the world benefit from it as well, but you want to benefit from it too.
Interesting. Yeah, I believe that 100%. All right. Sounds good. Okay.
All right. So I'll jump in here. So I just have a few follow-ups, Jared, because this has been a really interesting conversation. And I want to learn more about your students. Can you tell us about what's the makeup of the students, where they're coming from, how they're hearing about you, and where are they now? I'm really curious to learn more about your students.
Yeah. So the makeup of our students is average age is mid-30s. We have a very high um, military connected population, whether there be veterans or even students who are still in the military going through some kind of a program to advance their careers. Um, and we see them from all over the country. I've got students that this is their first thought after the military. I've got students that this is their first thought after high school. Um, I've also got students that run the other end of that spectrum, all the way up to the retired professional, whether that be in medicine or law or whatever, that are looking for that um, retirement job, that part-time retirement job that they're going to do, or just looking for that set of skills that they want to add to their toolbox. So we run that full gambit, but kind of that middle ground is that mid-30s student that has a passion for this industry, that wants to work with their hands, whichever one of the two industries it is, that wants to work with their hands and go out and be able to do things each day, um, and providing a service for a customer.
Gotcha. And what about the faculty? What's the makeup of the faculty?
Yeah, just about as varied. It's interesting. There's a lot of crossover into other realms, and so I'm very, very blessed that I have an amazing faculty. In some of the specialty courses inside of our programs, our faculty may not be as academically as prepared as faculty at other places, but that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those practitioners. In other places, we have faculty that are prepared doctorally, and so it runs that gambit. I have some faculty on staff that only hold a certificate from a entry level program because that's what they needed to do to get into that specialty in the world. And I've got faculty that have doctorates in criminal justice, and my gen ed faculty have doctorates in there. A lot of them have doctorates in their specific areas, whether that be English or science or whatever. So it really is a diverse population of faculty, and it's cool to see because when they do interact, it's neat to see both sides say, well, I'm seeing it from this point of view, I'm seeing it from this point of view, and wow, we can really get in the middle here and have a good effect on our students.
Yeah, that's super cool. Okay, I got two last questions for you.
Okay.
First question is, tell us about the future of SDI. What are you guys thinking of doing? What's the plan for SDI?
Yeah, we are evaluating additional programs. You know, what we just like any other higher education institution, we have an advisory council that is bringing us information on where those industries are headed. So we're looking at other programs in both of our verticals that we may want to launch. The next real close step is we are in the process of putting out those revitalized programs on the firearms side that I was talking about. That we're going to actually add one of the big pieces to the programs that was lacking in the past, and that's we're going to put a benchtop lathe in the student's home and have them learn to use that piece of machinery. And so that is a big step for us.
Mhm.
Probably the last gap to bridge to an on ground experience. And so we're super excited about that because it's finally gotten to the point where we can do this and do it well. You know, we probably could have done it a couple of years ago. I don't know that we would have done it well. And so we've taken a little bit of time, made sure we've gotten all the parts and pieces together to make it successful for the students. So that's going to be exciting for us. That'll be going out of the first part of next year. So that'll be our big focus for the first part of next year. But then we're evaluating, you know, where are the steps that we can take in our current industries, and then we're looking at other industries that we could provide training in. You know, with the administration here in America as it is, with their big push towards trade schools and manufacturing, that kind of stuff, we're positioned to help support that. You know, depending on what those initiatives are, what jobs are looking for. So we'll look to continue to support that, and then in the uncrewed space, there's new regulation coming out with the use of drones, and so we're going to continue to look at how we can continue to support our students and the industry with graduates that are going into those spaces, whether it's beyond visual line of sight, so that package delivery idea, whether it's one person flying multiple drones, even to the point of how do you maintain those drones? That's just recently coming about to be codified, and so that's going to require training and education for a whole new batch of students.
Oh, very exciting, very cool stuff. All right, last question for you, Jared. I'm very curious to get your feedback. You've been saying most higher education, so it seems like you know higher ed pretty well. So what do you see as the future of higher education?
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting question. I think that we're at a renaissance period where the future of higher education is really going to have to focus on what impacts they can have on a student and a graduate that then allows that student or graduate to go out and impact the world. And so, you know, I don't believe there's any bad education or knowledge that a student gains. You know, it's the one thing that no one can take away from you, right? If you learn something, it's yours to know and love for the rest of your life. Um, I do think that uh, there's a time and place for education that is correct for the person to be able to get into the next thing they want to get into. And so I think we've really got a renaissance coming around of how do we make sure that education is effective for our students that are then going to go out and be effective in the world and whatever it is they're going to do. Doesn't matter whether it's trades, whether it's business, whether it's the medical field, doesn't matter. I think we've really got to evaluate, are we making sure that students are getting educated in areas that they can go out and use that knowledge effectively for our world and that there's a need for it. And so I think that's where we stand, the precipice we stand on right now.
Yeah, and it's funny, I agree with that totally. I know there's more of a push to tracking students all the way through now, especially to a career. I mean, that's such an important aspect of the whole higher education journey. So I love that that insight and that's great, Jared. So okay, I want to first outro my co-host. He is Thomas Fetcher. He's the CEO at Integrity for Education. Tommy, thanks as always for being here.
Thank you, Elvin, and thank you, Jared, for this lively and interesting discussion this time. I learned a lot, so I take away something from that meeting, and I hope that we will be in touch soon to have another discussion about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have learned a lot too. So I want to say thank you to your guest, ladies and gentlemen. He is Jared McNeely, and he is the Chief Academic Officer at the Sonoran Desert Institute, also known as SDI. Jared, thank you so much for being with us today.
Elvin, Tommy, thank you so much for having me. It's a great topic to get to talk about, and just had a lot of fun getting to chat.
Absolutely. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Thanks for listening to this uninterrupted conversation as part of our Academic Integrity series brought to you by Integrity for Education. Integrity for Education supports your institution by unlocking the full potential of digitalization through the right mix of software solutions, strategic consulting, and sustainable implementation of state-of-the-art technologies. Learn more at integrityforeducation.de. That's integrity, the number 4, education.de.